Imagine for a moment that you have been given the most sophisticated, powerful, and complex machine in the known universe. It comes with no instruction manual, no user guide, and no troubleshooting guide. For your entire life, you are expected to operate this machine, to push it to its limits, to care for it, and to rely on it for every single decision, memory, and emotion you will ever have. This machine, of course, is the human brain. We all have one, and we use it every day, yet most of us are operating with a profound ignorance of its fundamental needs and principles. We try to learn, work, parent, and live without understanding the very organ that makes it all possible. We force ourselves to work in dimly lit cubicles for hours on end, we skip sleep to meet deadlines, we try to memorize facts through dull repetition, and we wonder why we feel drained, forgetful, and uninspired. It is as if we are trying to run a supercomputer on a faulty power supply while ignoring all its error messages. This is the profound gap that molecular biologist John Medina seeks to fill with his captivating book, Brain Rules, 12 Principles for Surviving and Thriving at Work, Home, and School. The book is not a dry, academic textbook filled with impenetrable jargon. Instead, it is a lively, engaging, and often surprising exploration of what scientists actually know about how our brains work, presented in a way that is immediately relevant to our daily lives. Medina's central premise is both simple and revolutionary. If we understood our brains better, we would design our schools, our workplaces, and our lives entirely differently. He distills this understanding into 12 core principles, or rules, that are grounded in solid scientific research but explained with the clarity and wit of a master storyteller. He takes us on a journey from the ancient savannas where our brains evolved to the modern challenges of the 21st century office and classroom. Showing us how we can work with our brain's natural inclinations rather than against them. The result is a book that is not just informative, but genuinely transformative, offering a new lens through which to view everything from a business meeting to a child's homework. One of the most fundamental rules, and a theme that echoes throughout the book, is the idea of exercise. Our brains were not designed for a sedentary lifestyle. They were forged in a world of constant movement, of walking vast distances, of hunting and gathering. Medina presents compelling evidence that physical exercise is not just good for our waistlines, it is a cognitive powerhouse. When we move our bodies, we improve the health of our cardiovascular system, which in turn provides a rich, steady flow of oxygen and glucose to the brain. More importantly, exercise has been shown to directly boost brain function. It acts like a fertilizer for our brain cells, encouraging the growth of new neurons and strengthening the connections between them. The implications of this are staggering. Medina suggests that a simple, consistent exercise routine can dramatically improve our memory, our problem-solving skills, and our ability to focus. He even goes so far as to propose radical changes to our work and school environments, imagining treadmills in offices and physical education as a central, non-negotiable part of every school day, not just for health, but for academic and professional performance. This rule reframes exercise from a chore for physical vanity to an essential investment in our mental capital. Just as the brain craves movement, it also has a deep and complex relationship with survival. The human brain is not a generic problem-solving machine, it is a highly specialized organ that evolved over millions of years to solve one primary problem: how to stay alive in an often hostile outdoors environment. This evolutionary perspective is a golden thread running through the entire book. Our brains are superb at recognizing patterns, reacting to threats, and seeking out rewards in a dynamic landscape. This explains why we are so good at remembering the location of a food source or the face of a potential predator, but so bad at remembering a random string of numbers or the contents of a boring PowerPoint slide. Our memory systems are not designed for abstract, decontextualized information. They are designed to retain what is meaningful for our survival and success. This is why we remember emotional events with such vivid clarity. The brain marks them as important. Understanding this survival instinct helps explain many of our cognitive quirks and strengths. It tells us that to learn and remember effectively, we need to make information meaningful, to connect it to real-world contexts, and to engage our emotional centers. We learn best not under threat, but when the learning itself feels relevant to our journey. When it comes to the wiring of our individual brains, Medina introduces a powerful and liberating concept: every brain is wired differently. The idea of a one-size-fits-all approach to education or management is a neurological fantasy. What you do and learn in life physically changes your brain. It rewires itself throughout our lifetimes, a phenomenon known as neuroplasticity. The brain is not a static, hardwired computer. It is a living, dynamic forest of connections that are constantly being pruned and strengthened based on experience. This means that the brain of a musician processes sound differently from the brain of a taxi driver who has a more developed spatial memory. It also means that we all have unique configurations of strengths, weaknesses, and talents. This rule has profound implications. It argues against standardized tests and rigid curricula that assume all students learn the same material in the same way at the same pace. It suggests that the most effective classrooms and workplaces would be those that offer customization and choice, allowing individuals to engage with material in a way that aligns with their unique neural architecture. It celebrates the diversity of human intelligence and calls for systems that nurture individual potential rather than forcing conformity. Perhaps no other rule is as immediately relevant to our modern world as the brain's need for attention. We live in an age of unprecedented distraction, with emails, notifications, and multiple screens constantly vying for our focus. But our brains have strict limitations on their attention systems. We are not capable of true multitasking. When we try to do several things at once, we are actually switching rapidly between them, a process that is inefficient, error-prone, and mentally exhausting. More fascinatingly, Medina explains that the brain is not interested in boring things. It is naturally drawn to what is emotionally relevant, to patterns that are familiar but not too familiar, and to potential threats or rewards. To capture and hold attention, especially in learning or professional settings, we must leverage these natural tendencies. This means ditching long, monotonous lectures and presentations in favor of stories, which are inherently engaging because they tap into emotion and sequence. It means breaking information into smaller, digestible chunks. It means starting with the big idea, the why, before delving into the details. Understanding the rules of attention allows us to design communications that are not just heard, but truly listened to and remembered. The process of memory itself is another area where our common practices are at odds with the brain's natural operations. We often treat memory as a recording device, something that can be filled through repetition. But Medina explains that memory is a much more fragile, dynamic, and reconstructive process. There are multiple types of memory, but one of the most important distinctions is between working memory, which is like a small, fragile mental scratchpad, and long-term memory, which is a vast storage warehouse. The journey of getting information from the scratchpad into the warehouse is not a simple one. It requires a process called consolidation, which is heavily dependent on one thing: sleep. This is a rule that modern society, with its culture of burning the midnight oil, desperately needs to hear. Sleep is not a passive state of rest, it is a period of intense cognitive activity during which the brain rehearses, processes, and solidifies what it has learned during the day. It files memories, makes connections between seemingly unrelated ideas, and even problem solves. Skimping on sleep doesn't just make you tired, it actively undermines your ability to learn and create. Furthermore, to make memories durable, we need to repeat the information, but not in the cramming sessions we all remember from school. The brain responds better to spaced repetition, where exposure to information is spread out over time, allowing for deeper encoding and stronger neural pathways. The role of sleep cannot be overstated, and Medina dedicates an entire rule to its critical importance. He dismantles the myth of the successful executive who only needs 4 hours of sleep a night, presenting overwhelming evidence that such a lifestyle is cognitively catastrophic. Sleep deprivation impairs attention, executive function, working memory, mood, quantitative skills, logical reasoning, and even motor dexterity. The brain uses sleep to perform essential maintenance, clearing out metabolic toxins, repairing cellular damage, and consolidating the day's learning. To deny the brain sleep is to deny a mechanic the time to fix a complex engine. It will inevitably break down. Medina's discussion of sleep is a powerful call to reevaluate our personal habits and our cultural norms, especially for students and professionals whose performance is directly linked to their cognitive sharpness. Another sensory domain that is often neglected in our understanding of cognition is stress. While acute, short-term stress can heighten our senses and improve performance, the chronic, unrelenting stress that characterizes so many modern lives is a poison to the brain. Medina explains how sustained elevated levels of the stress hormone cortisol can damage the hippocampus, a brain region vital for forming new memories. A brain under chronic stress is in survival mode. It is not interested in learning algebra or developing a new business strategy. It is focused on the perceived threat. This has dire implications for toxic workplaces and high-pressure schools where fear is used as a motivator. Such environments do not foster excellence, they systematically degrade the very cognitive tools needed to achieve it. Creating environments of psychological safety, where mistakes are seen as learning opportunities and well-being is prioritized, is not just a nice idea, it is a neurological imperative for peak performance. While we often think of the brain as a single entity, Medina beautifully explains the concept of sensory integration. Our brain is designed to learn and operate in a multisensory world. We take in information through our eyes, ears, nose, and fingers, and the brain weaves these separate strands into a single, rich tapestry of perception. This is why we learn and remember better when multiple senses are engaged. Reading about the French Revolution is one thing, seeing paintings from the time, hearing music composed then, and perhaps even smelling a scent from the period would create a much more robust and lasting memory. This rule argues against the passive, lecture-based model of education and for a more immersive, interactive, and experiential approach. The more channels we use to introduce information, the more neural real estate is involved in storing that memory, making it easier to retrieve later. Of all our senses, vision is the one that reigns supreme. A huge portion of the brain is dedicated to processing visual information, and we are incredible at remembering pictures. Medina's rule on vision is startling. We are not natural text processors. Text is a very recent invention in evolutionary terms, and the brain treats it as a series of tiny pictures, laboriously decoding them. But we can identify and remember images we've seen for only a few seconds with astonishing accuracy. This is known as the pictorial superiority effect. The practical application is clear. If you want people to understand and remember something, use a picture or a diagram whenever possible. A well-designed visual can convey complex information more efficiently and memorably than paragraphs of text. This rule should be taped to the computer of every teacher, presenter, and manager. The book also delves into the fascinating realms of gender and exploration. Medina carefully navigates the contentious topic of the gendered brain, acknowledging that while there are many more similarities than differences, some structural and functional distinctions exist, likely due to a complex interplay of genetics and hormones. These differences can influence things like emotional processing, risk-taking, and social navigation. The takeaway is not that one sex is superior, but that recognizing these tendencies can help us understand and communicate better with each other. Finally, the rule of exploration reminds us that the brain is fundamentally a powerful explorer. We are natural scientists, driven by an insatiable curiosity to test, probe, and experiment with our world. This is the primary way babies learn, and it is a drive that we never lose. The most effective learning environments, therefore, are not those that simply deliver answers, but those that encourage questions, experimentation, and even productive failure. In reviewing brain rules, it is impossible not to be impressed by the breadth of research, the clarity of explanation, and the genuine passion Medina brings to his subject. The book is a masterpiece of science communication. It succeeds not by dumbing down complex concepts, but by making them vivid and relatable through stories, real-world examples, and a consistently engaging voice. The rules themselves feel less like a list of commandments and more like a set of interconnected insights that, when taken together, form a coherent and compelling philosophy of how to live in better harmony with our own minds. The book's greatest strength is its practicality. After reading it, you cannot look at a classroom, a boardroom, or your own daily routine in the same way. You find yourself questioning why meetings are so long, why offices are so sterile, why we expect children to sit still for hours, and why we glorify sleep deprivation. Brain Rules provides the scientific justification for a quiet revolution in how we structure our societies. It empowers the individual, too, offering clear guidance on how to study more effectively, work more productively, and live a more cognitively healthy life. The advice to exercise regularly, prioritize sleep, manage stress, and engage multiple senses is not just good health advice, it is a prescription for unlocking your brain's full potential. If there is any limitation, it is that the scope of the book is so broad that some topics are inevitably covered at a high level. A reader looking for a deep dive into the neurochemistry of sleep or the intricacies of neuroplasticity would need to seek out more specialized texts. But that is not the purpose of Brain Rules. Its purpose is to provide a broad, accessible, and accurate overview, and it fulfills this purpose brilliantly. In conclusion, Brain Rules is more than just a book about the brain. It is a user manual for being human. It is a call to action to align our modern world with the ancient, powerful, and beautiful design of our minds. It argues that by understanding the principles that govern our cognition, we can create schools that inspire a lifelong love of learning, workplaces that foster innovation and well-being, and personal lives that are richer, more productive, and more fulfilling. It is a book that has the power to change not only how you think about your brain but how you choose to live your life, one beautiful, complex, and rule-driven thought at a time.